Welcome to The Blissful Life, a podcast where we awaken the wisdom of self and explore the lessons, the rituals, and the pathways to inner bliss. I'm your host, Regina Lawless, former corporate executive turned author and spiritual teacher. And I'm on a mission, y'all, to help people connect to and express their divine self so they can make their unique impact on the world. If you've been feeling like there is more to life than the hustle and grind, then you found your tribe. It's time to breathe and relax into the blissful life. Welcome back to The Blissful Life. I am so excited for today's guest. Not only is she a fabulous person, she is a dear friend. So on today's show, we have Stacy Ennis, who is a best-selling author, book coach, and speaker on a mission to help leaders clarify their ideas and harness their unique story to make an impact. Her background includes impacting more than 100 books in her 15 plus years in publishing, ghostwriting for a Nobel Prize winner in medicine, amazing, and leading as executive editor of Sam Club's Healthy Living Made Simple, a publication that reached around 11 million readers. Stacy's work and writing have been featured in Yahoo, Inc., Insider, Publishers Weekly, Katie Couric, and the TEDx stage. Stacy is also the host of the podcast Beyond Better, which is fantastic. Hopefully you all go check it out after this episode, and holds a master's in writing and editing from the University of Cincinnati. Welcome to the show, Stacy.
Regina, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Oh my gosh, me too. I am just so excited to bring like the woman, the legend behind me getting Do You out into the world. So for the audience listening and watching, Stacy and I met actually through a mutual friend of ours. We met through Misty Mejia.
We love Misty.
We
She's
love
so
Misty.
great.
And
Yeah.
for the listeners, y'all will probably have already heard Misty's episode. So I got a chance to get her on the podcast. So by the time this comes out, that episode would have aired. And Misty was so gracious to say, hey, I know a book coach. And put me in touch with you. And in our very first conversation, I was like, oh, this lady is fantastic. I couldn't believe that there was a job called book coach. It's like this really this
Me either, Regina. Me either.
So it's like, wait, what? Someone's gonna actually help me to conceptualize and write this book, and you were just such a pleasure to work with every step of the way.
Oh, I feel that I felt exactly the same when we met. It was one of those like, she's really awesome. I hope we get to work together. She's amazing. And it all proved to be true.
Aw. Oh my gosh. Yeah, what an experience. We'll have to have a whole other conversation about just the process of kind of writing a book. But for today's conversation, I want the audience to get the benefit of knowing more about you and more about what you do more broadly. So one of the things, though, that was evident when we met, out of many things that I learned in that first conversation, it was evident to me that you have a passion for books and for writing. And not everybody who does their profession can necessarily say they still have a passion for it. And that was important for me. So it made me curious in preparing for today's show. What was the first book or series that you remember falling in love with?
Oh, well, it's funny that you asked this question because I just bought 15 books today on for this, literally 15 books. I have this like list of books that I keep a list of books that people recommend to me with their names so that when I read it, I can go and tell them about it and like follow up and have a conversation. And I was like, why do I just keep this list? I'm just going to buy all of these. I didn't buy all of them, but I bought 15 of them so that they're ready to go. So yes, a very alive passion for books. My my passion for books and writing started in second grade, and it
Oh.
was the Chronicles of Narnia was my like fall in love series. Was
Oh
it
my
your? Oh
God.
no, was it yours too?
Friend, I love that was one of I'm going to give another example, but that one, oh my gosh, the Chronicles of Narnia had me in a
Mm,
chokehold. Like just
yes.
I loved that series. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, really powerful world building and
Yes.
imagination, and really let me go into this whole other world. And so that was the first one. I also that same year in second grade entered my first writing contest, and it was a Idaho State poetry contest, and I got second place, which I think was really great because it was
Yes.
good enough to encourage me to keep writing, but it was not so good that I got an ego about it. So it was just the right place. And then yeah, that just has continued my whole life. And I also feel like books have been a portal for me into other worlds and other cultures,
Mhm.
especially growing up in Idaho, which we call Whiteaho because it is, 90 or 87% white, I think,
Yeah,
in my
I
state.
barely noticed when I went there. Barely noticed.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and also very heavily religiously influenced. So I had a very nice upbringing, but it was very homogenous, this
Yes.
place that I grew up. And so books allowed me to experience other places, to develop empathy and understanding and
Mm.
curiosity about the world. And the first thing I did when I was out of college was move to another country and go to a totally different culture, but it didn't feel like it was my first time being in another culture or place because I had been transported my whole life through books.
Oh my goodness. So, as I already knew, a woman after my own heart. First of all, having the never-ending list of books to buy, like
You
I,
gotta go by 15, Regina, today.
I need to just like just pull the trigger because yeah, I have a never-ending list of books on my wish list or that I all the recommendations. So I love that, and I love the example of how books transport you to another world or even help you see things from other people's perspectives. The Chronicles of Narnia definitely did that for me and stretched my imagination. So, well, according to my dad, I started reading at 3. I don't know how true that is, but
I believe it. Knowing you, I believe it. It's
but
very impressive.
those the golden books, and
Yeah.
so those are my earliest memories of reading those and loving the Berenstain Bears books and all of these different stories. And when I got into middle school, I was an avid reader and was obsessed with the Babysitters Club. Like
Me
I'm
too.
sure, right? I'm
I read I had an entire shelf of like
sure.
whatever 100 plus books,
Yes.
and I just would reread those books.
Yeah.
And yes, that was, and also a character was named Stacy,
Yeah,
and
yes,
she was
yes.
from New York. We were like,
I love
so
Stacey. I loved Claudia. That was
Claudia was cool. She was too cool for me, but her and Stacy are besties, so,
yeah. So, oh my gosh. So I love that. So how cool this love of reading and writing. It's interesting. You also said second grade you won a contest. I won a writing contest in
What?
second. So look at that. Something about second grade. That's a year where maybe we both sparked a passion for writing. But with your journey, your love of books starting as a child, and then you later, of course, go on to become a writer and an editor. What was that like transitioning from being a writer, editing books, to then becoming a book coach for others?
Mm. Well, I mean, it really was a very slow transition because I started in book editing. I was a book editor for about 7 or 8 years. And I kind of had these overlaps, as many do when they're making career shifts. So, well, I started actually out in the magazine world. And then I was editing books, and then I kind of overlapped with ghostwriting. So I was kind of doing editing
Oh.
and ghostwriting together. And then I rolled off editing and I was ghostwriting for a long time, and then I overlapped coaching, and then I rolled off ghostwriting. Now my team does that. And Yeah, so I've always kind of liked shifting and exploring new things in my work. And I also realized there was a point where, I wrote about 2.5 books a year when I was ghostwriting, and which
Wow.
is pretty significant, as you know,
Yes.
to do.
Like, wait, what?
Yeah. Yes, heavily researched, very detailed. I would travel for these as well, so I'd usually travel to work
Mm.
on site with clients for about a week, and then we would, have additional meetings after that. So it was just very intense. Plus, I was speaking globally. I had a second company as well. So it
Oh,
was just
wow.
a lot going on. Um, but I realized that 2.5 books a year is only like that's all I could do. But if I was
Mhm.
coaching and applying this knowledge that I'd spent my entire life, even from, obviously in elementary school, you can't take extracurriculars, but as soon as I could, middle school, I started taking extracurriculars in writing. High school, I took extra classes in writing because my school offered it,
Wow.
and then I got my bachelor's and then I got my master's. And so it really was an entire life devoted to this craft. And plus, avidly consuming books, which is actually the best way to learn how to be a great
Yes.
writer.
Yes, I agree.
Um, and I just realized that if I could systematize what I'd learned, and I was also a teacher, as you know,
Oh my
Regina,
god,
but
yeah,
listeners
which
are
is I
learning right now.
forget that you were a
I was
teacher too.
Yes, I was a high school language arts teacher before I transitioned into editing. So I got to lean on my teaching experience and then my expertise that was growing into mastery, which mastery is never a place you arrive, but it's,
Yeah.
it's a constant practice. But as I was growing my mastery in this area, that is scalable. That's something I could, instead of putting 2.5 books out a year, I was like, "Oh, could that be 5? Could it be 10? Could it be 20?" And
Ooh.
now that I'm, hitting closer to that later number, I'm like, "Oh, could that be 30? Could it be 50?
Mhm.
Like, what partnerships could I do? How could I scale my programs to reach more authors?" And for me, actually, at the end of it, it's not just about the book because, I care about the book, but the impact of books like yours that are actually changing people's lives. For me, it's like, wow, that's like throwing all these stones into these ponds, and the ripple just keeps going out. And then I think, okay, if I could throw another one, wow, it's like just a beautiful thing to imagine. So I think that that's where that transition just made so much sense for me to be able to step over and grow more authors.
Oh my gosh. I love that, Stacy. There's two things that really stuck out about your response there. One, just how you followed your natural love of writing and books, and you followed that thread from being a little girl to um now having an entire business around something that you have always loved to do. And I find that remarkable because so many of us, we know early what it is we dream of doing, but we don't always follow that thread.
Mm,
And so you're such a wonderful example of, people say, oh, there's no money in writing or there's no money in teaching. And you were able to take that love and build a thriving business combining the teaching and the writing. So I think that's a beautiful example. And you said something really important that I always like to emphasize is around the imagining. You had this what if? What if I could, instead of doing 2.5 books a year, what if I could, contribute to 20, 30, and I know you'll go on and do beyond. And so I always love to highlight for people the power of just having a dream and following that dream and seeing where it goes you know you're an example that it can go very, very far if you work at it.
yeah.
Oh,
And it's not without setbacks, as you know, in
oh, for
your
sure.
in any endeavor. I mean, I can think about so many times especially in the early years of my business, that it was really hard
Mm,
building this business. And I remember one in particular when I was pregnant with my second child, my son, I had gestational cholestasis, which is a
ugh,
liver disorder. And that it was very urgent. I had to go in and have an emergency induction. Like, I was at lunch with a friend and my midwife called me and was like,
Oh,
"Your blood test results came back. Where are you? Come to the hospital."
right.
And I was put into induction within like 2 hours of that.
Mm,
And I had a contract at the time. I was billing on a like milestone basis for my ghostwriting. And I had a big chunk of this project that was waiting for me to submit this manuscript that I was set to be done with well in advance. In my mind, I was like, okay, I'm doing 2 weeks. I'm going to be done with this in 2 days, basically, as I had about 2 days left. Okay, I'm good. I'm going to get this done. I'll get this check that's very important to my family because I'm the only earner.
yeah.
And then I went and had to be induced. And the result of that was 3 days after my son was born, I had him on my chest while I finished this book and got it off to my client. Those are the things that you go through
Yeah.
as somebody who is running their own business. The thing, to your point, that I think has been such a powerful anchor is that I wake up every single day grateful for this work that I get to do.
Mm.
And I get to work with the coolest people in the world, like you, doing really
Thank you.
awesome stuff and playing a small part in changing people's lives. Like,
Oh gosh.
it's pretty awesome. It's
It's
pretty
very
cool.
awesome and more than a small part, friend, like more than a small part. It's interesting you mentioned your midwife because I see you very much as a midwife. You
Oh,
you have you have helped birth so many books into existence, including mine, which I will always be grateful for your guidance and support throughout that process. Um, I'm curious, what is something, since you've worked with so many authors, what is something surprising or insightful that you've learned with working with so many of us quirky authors?
ooh, what is something insightful or surprising that I've learned? I think the thing that never ceases to surprise me is how deeply wounded people are as writers.
Yeah.
And that even the most confident, successful, the person that's on the stage with the, you know, open posture and the eloquent words and, that's in front of the room and that's so confident, that same person will break down in tears when they talk about their writing past and the way that people
Yeah.
have treated them around writing, usually in elementary school. It's usually a teacher.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's junior high. Typically it's somewhere in that like elementary, junior high years. There was a
Yeah.
teacher who told them they were a bad writer. There
Mm.
was, some kind of like writing experience where somebody made fun of them. They were dyslexic, maybe they're neurodivergent in some other capacity. And so reading has always come hard. It's always been hard for them. And so they develop a lot of inner talk about their ability. And then they form this identity as being bad at writing or not a writer.
Mhm.
And that's just even for people that come in and they're like, yeah, I write all the time and I consider myself a writer. It still exists almost universally that there is a wound in some capacity, men, women, across all industries. And I think in the coaching capacity, for people to trust me to share that and for me to like receive that for them, and then because I was also a teacher, I can speak from a place of like a different place in a different kind of authority outside of coaching to
Yeah.
like say that that's not okay, nor is it accurate, nor is that normal for a teacher to treat a child that way or to give that kind of feedback to a child, or the adults around you didn't shouldn't have done that. And
Yeah.
it's not true. And how can we work through this? So yeah, that's just an interesting piece. I think people aren't really expecting that when they go into writing. Many don't even realize that unless they go deep enough in themselves to understand the scripts that are playing in their head that are
Yeah.
holding them back. If they really go deep, it usually has some kind of early wound in relation to their writing.
Mm. Yeah, and that's gotta be so hard. I think that's one of the things that you did beautifully was holding the space for vulnerability, whether that vulnerability is tied to childhood wounding, like you just mentioned, which, man, no one gets out of childhood unscathed. So,
No.
like, But even the vulnerability of the story, like I
Mm,
remember that was for me, I was grappling with how much of this painful story to share and how to give it the right reverence. And you just so beautifully helped me pull out my voice and shape it. And I always remember, even when I write to this day, you told me show versus tell. So that stuck with me. The teacher in you is alive and well because you taught me that, and it for sure stuck with me. I love that your skill is to help people have that safe space. Because yeah, I can imagine every writer that comes to you has something, has some sort of hang up.
100%. I mean, and a lot of most people's biggest hurdle in their own success as authors is their own inner self-talk. Like that just
Hmm.
is true. And
Yeah.
I know that you talk about this a lot in how you orient to things and how you decide to kind of move through experiences that are uncomfortable or, you know, maybe don't align with what you were expecting. So sometimes people get into this process and they've watched a movie where the person goes to a log cabin and they're like, da 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 da, I'm just going to write my book. And there's like birds fluttering and, and then they're just staring at the blinking cursor and just thinking that they're the worst ever. And, or they have a big firestorm of writing and then they can't write anymore. That happens a lot too. And
Mm.
then they're like, well, that was just a fluke and I'm not actually a good writer. And so you could either choose to accept those scripts and that self talk and stop, or you could examine them, rewrite them, and use strategies to get through them and be able to write.
There you go. That's actually a perfect segue to my next question because I do believe everyone has a story in them, probably stranger than how they say, reality is stranger than fiction. So, I do think we all have an interesting story or two, but most people don't know where to begin. To your point, like there's such a block, I think, around writing and just the magnitude of writing a book. Like certainly that was my mental model when I came into it. For the person listening though, that does not have the resources like I did to hire a fabulous coach such as yourself, what is one piece of advice you'd give them to go from that idea they have to a first draft?
Mm. Well, first of all, I have a ton of free content that you can
Yes, you
find. I
do.
mean, really, I also have a secret resources page that is not listed, but you can find it stacyennis.com/resources. And it's all free. And I have a podcast and I have a newsletter. And I do that because I want to make that information accessible and I want to be able to
Mm,
support people regardless of whether they can join my program or work with me one on one. So that is available and out there for you. Um, I think that probably the greatest thing that anybody can do if they want to hone a creative craft, whether that's writing a book or developing strategy, actually is a very creative act as well. Making
yeah.
space for deep thinking is really cultivating space and time to be deeply introspective and creative. This is seen as a luxury by most. This is not
Yeah.
something that the vast majority of people are carving into their everyday. Regina, I listened to one of your recent episodes where you talked about creating space in your life and how that has been such an important
Mm,
component for you at this stage. That again, for many people feels very luxurious to build in space.
yeah.
This is where a lot of people get really stuck. You don't need an hour. You need what you can do. So I had
Yes.
this person write me on my email list and he said, "Thank you so much for your newsletter. It's been so helpful for me. However, I've been trying to make progress on my book and I've been trying to write for an hour a day, but I just can't get it in. So I've made no progress." And I wrote him back and I said, "Okay, well, if you can't do an hour a day, can you lower the bar for success? And what would that look like? Is
Mhm.
it 20 minutes? Is it less than that?" So set an achievable bar. You can always nudge it up once you've successfully met that goal. And it sounds a little counterintuitive. Sometimes it's like you're telling me to lower my bar. That's not what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
Um, but actually consistently sitting down for 20 minutes a day is so powerful.
It
That's a
really
lot of
is.
time. Sitting down for 20 minutes a day is so incredibly powerful when you look at the cumulative
Yes.
impact. And the other thing is that oftentimes you might sit down for 20 minutes, but you're in flow. And because after you stick with a habit over time, your brain builds new neural pathways, which enable you to get into a flow state faster. So you'll find yourself clicking into flow more frequently. And when you're in that flow, one of the things about flow is you sometimes lose track of time. So you may
Yes.
find yourself actually writing for 30 minutes or 40 minutes, and magically, because the universe conspires to work with us, your day still works out. Like it just is, this is just how it works. And I've seen it so many times. And this is true across life experiences. So I'm very mindful of the productivity bros that are like, get up at 5 a.m. and like do
Mm.
an ice bath. And for,
Right.
a single mom or somebody who is not in a privileged position with
Right.
maybe additional support in their life or margin in their day, that's so defeating. So I'm
Yes.
always telling, and of course, this advice varies based on your capacity, your financial bandwidth, your time bandwidth, but wherever you are, there is time in some capacity. That may not be an hour. It might be 10 minutes. It might be 20 minutes. It might be 40. It might be 2 hours. Whatever that is that you can meet and you can stay consistent with, cultivating that habit will be the most powerful thing that you can do to achieve any creative goal, including writing a book.
Yeah, I like 1,000% to all of that. And I can attest to that advice because I was working full time at Meta in a leadership role.
Yes, I
Um, s-
remember this, Regina. Yes.
yeah. And I found time to write a whole book, but it was being creative with time, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
Like for me, some days it was getting up earlier to be able to carve out, even to your point, sometimes it was just 20 or 30 minutes because I just didn't have a lot of time that day or it wasn't clicking. Like sometimes as writers, we do get that block or it just isn't flowing on a particular day. But once you sit back down and you keep doing it, you taught me how to have some consistency. And so I learned not to beat myself up over time. So if I couldn't do a lot of words, because that's a hack that I would like to share that you shared with me. You actually had me focus on word count as opposed to time because I don't know why it worked for me, but it was like, okay, if I could focus on getting 1,000 words or 1,500 words, I was aiming between 1,500 and 2,000 words when I sat down. Sometimes that would come out in, 10, 15 minutes because I was flowing. Other times that would maybe take me an hour to
Yeah.
get
Yep.
1,500 words. But knowing that, it allowed me to be flexible and plug and play time over like 2.5 weeks because that's another thing that helped me that I think could help other people. Don't feel like if you don't get it in at the exact same time every single day that you're not achieving your goal. Life is gonna life. And so I
Yeah.
had to say, okay, I was gonna try to work, right in the morning. I stayed up late. I'm tired. I'm not going to be able to get up early this morning, but I can do it after work or sometimes even at my son's rugby practices. You gave me the tip of keeping a notebook with me. So I would write in my notebook or I would write on my phone in the notes app. Sometimes on weekends, I would have family help me. I'd say, hey, I have a chapter that I need to finish. Can you watch the dog? Can you know, just allow me to be in my room, phone off for a couple of hours while I work on this. So, um, yeah, there's definitely some creative ways. And I love the advice of just being consistent and not being too hard on yourself.
Yes, I could not agree more. And, if you have mostly consistent schedule and you're mostly showing up most of the time, you're doing great. And,
Yes.
you know, Regina, the other day, I slept till 9 o'clock on a work day.
That's I love this for you.
9 o'clock.
I did.
My husband was like, "Are you alive in there?" But
Yes, and love and life.
I didn't go to bed, like, extra late. My body just really I don't know what it was that day. My body needed a lot of sleep, so
That's
I
it.
got a lot of sleep, and I felt great when I woke up. And that also meant that some of the things that I had intended to do in the morning didn't get done, but
Yep.
I was like, "I slept. I slept till 9. I'm gonna just count this as a win, and I'm not gonna go,
Yes.
'Oh, I'm so stressed out because I didn't get up,' and,
Yeah.
that would have been ridiculous because
Right.
actually I accomplished something really important, which was nourishing my body, and that's what I
Mhm.
needed that day." So
Yes.
again, I bring up the productivity bros and, sometimes they have some good tips, so I don't mean
Yeah.
to, like, hate on them.
I mean, it's fine. They have
Yeah.
some, a broke clock is right twice a day, as they
Yes,
say.
exactly. But
So
I think that this, like, hyper focus on, like, every single day, everything is exactly this way, it's
yeah.
just not realistic, and I think for women in particular, because we carry so much mental load, we
Yes.
carry so much even being the I think that women are the culture keepers of our families, so we
Absolutely.
we carry also this emotional, um a burden's not the right word because
Right.
I don't see it as a burden personally, but it's like this emotional
Like
weight.
labor or there
Labor,
is some
yes, labor. It
yeah.
is
Yeah.
labor because you really are the person that needs to carry the energy for your family and kind of
Yes.
keep the culture of your family, and plus, at least in my family, all the doctor's appointments and all this
Oh my
stuff.
gosh.
You
Yes. You're
know? And although my husband and
everything.
I are very modern and he's a stay-at-home dad and he does
This is
all the
amazing.
grocery shopping and cooking and child running around and things like that, I still have a lot of that extra things that I carry as a female in the world. So,
Yes,
when you're
absolutely.
a woman and you're reading a book like Atomic Habits, you have to take that through the lens of also patriarchy and the reality of being a
Mhm.
woman, and you have to also focus on the things that your body and soul needs to care for
Yes.
yourself alongside being driven and achieving your goals. So, it's
Oh god.
layered in that way.
Very much so, and that's the whole mission that I'm on, and as folks listen to the podcast, they'll see that come out, and I'm rolling out a program in a little bit that is focused on women and allowing us to give ourselves that space and come back into our softness and just being, not doing all the time. And I think listening to some of that advice, to your point, there are some nuggets, but it can be dangerous for I think it can be toxic in if it's taken to the extreme for anybody, but particularly for women for all the reasons that you mentioned. I believe we need to for sure balance it with more rest and nourishment of ourselves first and foremost, because we don't do that enough.
I love this
Um,
program that you're working on. This sounds amazing. You'll have to keep me posted
yes.
so I can spread the word with you.
Yes, more to come, y'all, more to come. So interesting how we got on this path of just nourishing ourselves and having a little bit more balance or presence. And it sounds like, or just even from knowing you, I know how fuller a life you have now, or how you're able to do so much living abroad. So I was I'm wanted to kind of tee this up for the audience, more around your lifestyle now with location independence. You mentioned earlier being raised in Boise, Idaho. Now you live in Portugal with your family. And if people follow you, they see your post around living abroad, location independence. You just had a great post the other day where you're talking about just the cost of going to the ophthalmologist. And I was like, what? I think I spent more at Starbucks last time. So I'm like, wait,
That's California for you.
right? so so what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned from your journey, of moving abroad and living in multiple places? What advice would you give others who are contemplating relocating from the US?
Hmm. The biggest thing about leaving the US is that you look in on the fishbowl and you start to recognize things that because you were in the fishbowl, you didn't have the awareness of the water around you. And
Mhm.
one of those things well, there were two things. One is this hyper focus on depletion. This is highly valued in American
Mhm.
culture. We value depletion over rest, also very masculine kind of focus of work. So
Yes.
that's one. The other one is this hyper focus on autonomy and doing everything by yourself, being self sufficient, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. These
Yes.
are
Mhm.
really, really harmful, especially for women. I mean, if we're continuing this conversation about women, um, right when we moved abroad, our first country that we lived in was the Dominican Republic.
How
First thing
amazing.
that people said was, "Oh, you should like here's a housekeeper that could come help you clean your house." I'm like, "I'm 23 years old. Do I need this?" No, but like everybody gets help in,
Yeah.
abroad. It's just expected that you will have support around your life. So
Yeah.
immediately I was like, I changed my mindset around this. And I know growing up, I did have a housekeeper in Idaho, but we we paid her. It was so expensive, and so we could only afford her to come like every 2 weeks. And then one time I left some dishes, and she told me that she didn't do dishes. So it was like, and she won't change the sheets. And I was like, so what are you doing? And it's just a very different mindset abroad because it's kind of like when our housekeepers come now, our house is a disaster. Like I
Yeah.
don't clean anything up at all. And they leave and I feel immense peace and joy because they have come in and like made
And
made
just
everything beautiful again.
yeah,
And I
helped you
don't feel
function.
yeah, and I don't feel anything about it. Like I bet anytime, Regina, your friends talk about their housekeepers, do they talk about them cleaning up? About cleaning up before their housekeeper comes to their
Oh,
house?
I am guilty. I used to
Yeah,
clean up before at my last house when I had, housekeeping services. Absolutely. I
yeah,
I
you
would
have to
keep
clean, tidy up.
Yes,
Because
yes.
otherwise they will like also they wouldn't pick things up off the ground. So they'd like vacuum around stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
really?
Yes. Yeah, my
And then
son's room
there's
was
my
a
like
disaster.
$250 bill for that day.
Yeah.
So some of that stuff that I just learned to think more about like the entire support around us. And so,
Mhm.
now we have our housekeeper, we have a gardener, I have a local assistant outside of my business that supports me for like errands, picking things up, dropping
Oh,
things at the
that's
mail, things
awesome.
like that. And I feel great about it. I don't feel anything about it. Whereas in the US, it was like, oh yeah, yeah, I got help with this. It was just this very like, you need to kind of be self-sufficient. And it felt like you were self-important if you got help, which is totally not accurate at all.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you mentioned that because I do feel like there's this weird, almost perversion of women are supposed to be not only ambitious and you're supposed to be killing it at work, but then also your house is supposed to be pristine. Like
My
you're,
house is, let me just be clear. My house is not pristine. It's only
oh,
on
no.
Thursdays when our housekeepers are here.
Yes, my house is never pristine. It's lovely when people are coming to visit for sure. But
I try to keep it like tidy-ish, but it's like I have 2 young kids, so it just ain't
yeah, so
happening over here.
right, but just that's such an interesting cultural shift that you mention and, um, the burden you just really had me thinking and just remembering, especially when I was working in corporate, just this double burden of having, as a working woman, having to hold it all together at home. Because even, to your point, even if you have a partner that is progressive and helping, there's still things that we are doing above and beyond to hold things together as the woman of the house or as a woman in society, plus whatever you're doing with your business or your job. And so I love that that was a distinct difference, kind of moving abroad to other places How, in terms of quality of life, because you mentioned this culture of depletion, which that's putting it nicely. Like we have a culture of like
Culture of
putting
suffering,
people,
maybe.
yeah, culture of suffering, people putting people in the grave early.
Yeah.
Yeah, the focus on burnout and like the badge of honor. And it goes with the kind of the toxic, bro culture, like not to give all dudes a bad name here. We love men on this show, but but the
Absolutely. The good ones, yes, the ones that
yes,
are, like,
the ones that
contributing.
yes, the ones that are contributing. But we have to name this because these are some of the outcomes of this patriarchal kind of masculine focused norms that we're living in, particularly in the US. This burnout is a big part of that culture, and it affects our quality of life. And so what are some of the differences you've seen in terms of your quality of life living in Portugal and other places versus here in the US?
Mm. Well, it really carries on this same theme, and I'll tell you a quick story. When we first moved to Portugal, the first winter that we were here, all the businesses just shut down. Like, there was no way to get in touch with
Ah,
anybody. They were closed. See you again in 2 months. And I was like, "What is going on?" People just close their businesses for 2 months, sometimes longer.
oh, a dream.
Just closed. That's it. They're closed. And and I and it really, like, planted a seed for me. I was thinking, I wonder if I could do that. I wonder if I could close for a month." And, I mean, 2 maybe stretching it a little at this point in my life, but maybe someday. Maybe I could do a month. And so eventually I did. I take the month of August off. This year I'm adjusting it a little, so I'll take most of August off, but I take about 8 weeks off per year in total.
Amazing.
Um, and I feel great about it again.
Yeah,
I
as
feel
you
great about it.
should.
Really, and what's amazing to me every single time, it never fails. I have so many new clients and new things come through the week before I go on a major break. Like, if it's more than 2 weeks, I have a bunch of people come in, a bunch of people sign contracts, work
Yeah.
waiting for me when I come back. It always happens. And I just think that there's a certain energy around. I also think that when people know that you are, when you frame it for people, which is this is true, that you resting and restoring actually serves them more, and that you're maintaining yourself and your spirit and your brain. So when you come back, you are your best and brightest self, and you routinely take breaks and travel and do fun things and nourish your brain so you can be your best all the time. And that's part of how you live your life. People appreciate that. They don't want you,
Yes.
they don't want the surgeon doing the 10:30 p.m. surgery after he's or she's been working all day long.
Right.
They want the person with the fresh brain that's there and able to perform that with ease and awakeness. And that's what I try to bring
Mhm.
in my work as well. Now, I'm not perfect by any stretch. I've had a couple of weeks lately that I've been working till 7 or 8 at night, but I'm taking breaks. Sometimes I sleep till 9 apparently.
Yeah, right.
You know, I usually take a 2-hour lunch every single day,
Good
get
for
outside,
you.
eat nourishing whole foods. So there's all these components that working that late doesn't look like getting up at 6 and working until 8. It looks like,
Right.
okay, I've got some late meetings, but most of my day is still very peaceful and restorative. Not always, but a
Mhm.
lot of the time.
But a lot of the time, and I think that's it, and I imagine that's because you set an intention for that to be so, and so I think that's something that I've learned through especially the last few years. I was on this roller coaster of trying to maximize every minute, and I had to do all of these things and burning the candle at both ends, as they say, and you just get into this rhythm of doing that because it's expected and you're rewarded for being always on, and it's ridiculous. Like it's
Yes.
actually ridiculous when I look back and think how much of myself, how much of my time and energy that I was giving away only to be completely burnt out. And just because we can function on little sleep, just because we can work for 12, 15 hours straight doesn't mean that it's right or useful. So I find I am so much more productive when I'm rested, so much more creative, so much more responsive versus reactive. And so I decided when I left corporate to set up my days that way, very similar to yours, where I have lots of breaks, lots of free time. If I do have to work late, I'm definitely not getting up the next day to do something
Mine sleeps till
early,
9.
so yeah, absolutely. So it can be done if you have the intention of doing so, and maybe it means you need to, find a culture, even a country that makes that easier, but so
Yeah, I
who
mean,
knows?
it does make a
Mhm,
difference being in a
mhm.
place. So that example of the business owners is one example, but we live at the beach, okay? So we live like a
Mm.
mile and a half from world-class, absolutely beautiful beach.
Oh,
And there are about a dozen beaches within a 20-minute drive from us, at least a dozen, probably more than that. And there is just something also about living near the ocean in a
oh my
beach
gosh.
town. And
Yeah.
then also just last night, one of my friends organized a women's get together. It was really fun. She had some different beauty providers that came. So one that did like a sugar hair scrub, like
Mm.
hair removal, and one that
Oh,
did
I love it.
eyebrows. And so you could get a treatment, and we did a shared meal and just like hung out with women. And her and I were chatting, and we were like, wow, we've got, South Africa, we've got Morocco, we've got us
Mm.
Americans, we've got the Germans, we've just got such a wide range of cultures that have all come together and we're all connecting together in this space. I think we had like
Ugh.
10 or 12 different nationalities, and that's doubling up a couple of them. And they're being in a multicultural environment, again, me coming from Idaho in a very, very, very different world to come into now the place that I live. That experience, it really changes you. Like
Mhm.
really being and kind of coming in humbly with letting go of this like America's amazing and the best at everything mindset and
Right.
coming in and going, wow, we're all humans from all of these different places and we all have different ways of approaching our work and how we live. And I've learned so much from Europeans on how to think about work. I still
Yes.
maintain my American drive, and that's
Yeah.
probably not going to go anywhere. And I like that side of
Right.
myself,
Yeah.
but I can complement that with a new appreciation for a slower pace, for an appreciation for longer breaks, and that being a given, not a like, if I can make it work, it's just baked into how things function. So, that for me has been very, very important to challenge myself. I'm often examining my own beliefs, my own orientations to things, and
Mm.
looking at it and going, is this really what I still believe? Is this how I want to operate? Sometimes, a lot of times it's yes, but sometimes it's no. And then I get to change. I always have a
Oh,
choice to
wow.
change.
There we go. It's just so beautifully said. Not only learning from other cultures, but having the humility and openness to adopt what feels right to you and let go what doesn't. Um, Amazing. So what are you most excited about, friend? Like, what do you have on the horizon personally and professionally that you're looking forward to?
Hmm. Well, I just started a new cohort in my author program, Idea to Draft, and that's been super exciting because there's just so much good energy when people are starting their books. So,
Yeah.
very excited about that. And as we record this, I'm getting ready for a trip to London. I go there every 3 to 4 months, and I have a really big network now in London, which is really cool. And I'm doing a
Amazing.
couple of different events there. So, I'm doing a workshop, and then I'm on a board of an entrepreneur accelerator program there. So I'll be meeting with them and then going to an event there. So I'm really looking forward to that and just being with humans in
Yeah.
real life. Um,
Yes.
and and so it's been really a fun year. It's been a very expansive year. I've been speaking a lot. I've been on a lot of media, a lot of interviews, and it's been really joyful because I don't know about you, Regina, but I know many people experienced a lot of contraction in their speaking and and personal
Yes.
connection because of COVID. And
Yeah,
so
for
I've
sure.
been finally in that, okay, I'm back, I'm speaking, I'm out in the world. So that's been so, so fun and so exciting.
Aw, a year of continued expansion. I love it. I love that for you and well deserved. Uh, so I know after this conversation, people will want to find you, connect with you, and hopefully they were paying attention to all the gems you dropped around book writing. So hopefully they will want to work with you as well. How can people stay connected and how can aspiring authors work with you?
Thanks for that, Regina. Well, I'm at stacyennis.com. You can go there and grab my free guide on 10 things you must know before you write your nonfiction book. I also just launched a writing superpower quiz just recently. So you can
Ooh.
take that quiz to not only learn your writing superpower, but learn some practical tips to lean into that and uplevel your writing. So that's on my website, stacyennis.com as well. And I'm on Instagram at Stacy Ennis. I'm on LinkedIn. And if you heard me through Regina's podcast, just shoot me a DM and say hi. Tell me where you found me. I always love to connect with anybody in Regina's ecosystem. So I'd love, love, love to get to hear from you.
Aw, Stacy, incredible as always. I love when we get a chance to connect, and I love any way that I can highlight you and share your wisdom because you certainly changed my life. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I am just wishing you so much continued success, friend. Thank you for everything that you do.
Oh, thank you, Regina. I also love to get to tell people about you. You're like a permanent fixture in slides at different presentations. I always tell people how awesome you are, a big picture of you in your
Aw.
book, and regularly in conversation because I really believe in the work that you're doing and the mission that you have. And it's an honor to get to be on your podcast. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for watching. Stay blissful. Bye.